Everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you. Good afternoon, and my name is Alita Williams, and I am the president of the Rotary Club of Chicago, and I'm going to convene the 5,678th meeting of our club. And with that, Marshall, will you come up and give us the thought of the day?
Good afternoon, everyone. So yesterday marked Indigenous Peoples Day, and it involved a rare confluence of some very difficult events. We're dealing with a war in Israel, and that obviously involves a different issue of Indigenous people. So today I wanted to kind of honor both the Indigenous peoples by quoting an Ojibwa prayer that was appropriate for the events that are going on halfway across the world in Israel and Palestine. Teach us love, compassion, and honor, that we may heal the earth and heal each other. Rotary is dedicated to peace. And on this day, when people are fighting in Israel, let us keep this Ojibwa prayer in our hearts, minds, and prayers. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Marshall. Okay, so we will do our best to get to Zoom questions with our speaker. Always remember to please keep everyone's questions succinct and one question per person. We will try to get to, if you are on Zoom and have questions, if you could please put them into the chat and we will make sure to get to those. And at this time, Andrew will come up and introduce our speaker.
Thank you, Alita, and good afternoon, everyone. Well, I'm excited about this. I got a chance to chat with our speaker here for a couple minutes before our meeting today and have a couple of overlaps with our speaker here, but certainly not his amazing experience, which I will go ahead and share with a little about right now. Dr. Kenneth Schaefle, I'm sorry, and I'm Schaefle, and I just made a point to talk to him about it right there too, and just came up here with the light and just got blinded. So Schaefle, Kenneth Schaefle, amazing name, and his father's here as well. So sorry, Mr. Schaefle Sr. about butchering that right there. But he is an Eagle Scout and a graduate of ETHS and Northwestern University. He's got an amazing story though. Him and two friends who also went to ETHS and Northwestern went to Amsterdam, and I'm biased because I also am ETHS alumni. My wife worked for Northwestern for 7 years, and so still have a bunch of family in Evanston. But in Amsterdam, the doctor here was able to found something that is something that most people don't find there in their lives, which is a theater company called Boom Chicago. It's the first English language improv comedy theater in the Netherlands. Pretty cool, right? Even cooler is that it was the first one in Holland and became the largest and longest running theater show company in the country's history, with millions of tickets sold. It's celebrating its 30th anniversary this year and has launched the careers of well-known American comedians you may have heard of, like Seth Meyers, Jordan Peele, Amber Ruffin. The creators of Ted Lasso learned their love for European football, or as you know, it's soccer, at Boom. It's a pretty amazing thing, but what Dr. Schaefle is here to talk about is not Boom. It's actually what happened next, which is in 2006, he pursued a path on medicine and started a medical school at the age of, he started his journey into medical school at the age of 40. While a student, he participated in a 2-month global health trip to Uganda, and there he developed his love working in low-resource settings. After completion of residency at Lenox Hill Hospital in Manhattan, Ken joined the Global Health Facility at Montefiore Hospital working with the Uganda program where he participated as a student. He's now in his 6th year in the Global Health Faculty Group. He is the editor of Reasoning Without Resources, a 1,500-page global health textbook. He spends 3 to 4 months a year now teaching in Uganda, teaching American medical students and residents how to provide medical care in a low-resource setting. And he's kindly sharing his time today to speak with us. So if we can, go ahead and put your hands together for Dr. Schaefle.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Alita, for having me here. Thank you, Sarah, for your coordination and help. My name is Ken Schaefle. I'm a doctor. I'm also a native of Evanston, as Andrew mentioned. Shoveled snow in the blizzard of '79, cheered for Ditka's Bears in '85 and Jackson's Bulls in the '90s. So I'm a Chicago guy. But I'm here to talk about global health. And global health is the care for other people in other places who have other diseases than we do and who have other resources than we do. And by other resources, I mean less resources. Global health is where we in societies with a high level of economic, industrial, and technological development export medical aid to people whose societies are generally less developed. This field of global health has been going on for 75 years. And I date it to 75 years because in 1948, this quote was printed and published for the first time ever. I'll read it out loud. "The enjoyment of the highest attainable standard of health is one of the fundamental rights of every human being, without distinction of race, religion, political belief, economic, or social condition." This was the first time the idea and the language of health as a human right was ever published and printed in a widely distributed document. This text was found in the preamble to the World Health Organization, the WHO, which, as you may know, is a subset of the United Nations. Now, the United Nations was formed in 1945 in the immediate aftermath of World War II. The first health organization they established was UNICEF, the United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund, to immediately and urgently export food and medical aid to the children of countries devastated by war in Russia, Eastern Europe, Western Europe, and England. They spent a few more years on the drawing board to create the WHO. And in so doing, they assembled the group of nations and they said, we are now going to look at the global health landscape, include everyone, and try to promote and advocate for the health improvement of everyone on the planet. That was 1948, and we were at the aftermath of World War II, where America had been doing a lot of moving ships and planes and people and equipment across the Atlantic and across the Pacific. And we had the logistics, the food surplus, the medical aid, and the financial capacity through the Marshall loans, the IMF and the World Bank, to export these things around the world. There was also a coincidental and fortunate series of medical breakthroughs at this time. The invention of penicillin, tuberculosis treatment, the first vaccines for diphtheria, tetanus, pertussis, and the polio vaccine, in which Rotary was later to get so heavily involved. This was the first toolkit, and we had the industrial and pharmaceutical capacity to manufacture and export this at scale. And this was a true benefit to the world that had global impact. In 1948, the global landscape in which this was occurring was still actually a colonial era. Over 30 countries in Africa were still held as colonies. Indonesia was still a colony. India had just become independent in 1946, and several Caribbean and South American countries were still colonies. So actually, this aid was almost going through the colonial countries to through the governments we were already allied with. The IMF and the World Bank were created to do government-to-government loans. And all of this aid was principally done through top government channels in large packages. and the aid was coming from the west to the east and from the north to the south. That was 1948. Now, as you know, in life, in planet Earth, what happens next? Everything changes, and that's exactly what happened. In the 1960s, all of the African colonies attained freedom very quickly, and various independent governments were created. In the 1980s, the financial aid that had been given by the IMF and the World Bank actually became a crushing debt burden for many of these countries. And the need and necessity to pay the interest on their loan payments subtracted directly from the health and education budgets of their own country. So what had begun as financial aid ended up being a downward pressure on the development of these countries, which continues to this day. The aid that used to be just government to government now was coming from many sources. In 1979, Rotary began its first polio eradication campaign in the Philippines, and in 1985, this was scaled up to a worldwide eradication effort. In so doing, Rotary approached the World Health Organization and said, we want to eliminate a disease from the world. Previously, only governments, large governments, could act and influence health outcomes on this level. But now an organization of citizens with donations and a common vision could impact global health. We saw this also with the creation of Doctors Without Borders in 1971, and also the role of individual wealth with the creation of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation in the 90s. Now there were many sources for global health aid and many organizations adopting specific causes, so causing both a stronger amount of global health aid, but sort of a fractured global health aid landscape. And now in the 1990s, we officially moved into a multipolar world. With China's ascension as a world power, they were providing aid and developmental packages. Russia and the Soviet Union also providing select aid to countries, and India becoming a mass exporter of low-cost pharmaceuticals. So now any country was no longer talking exclusively to the West for aid. They were entertaining multiple providers. Lastly, as we cover these 75 years since the beginning of global health, starting in the 2000s, there became an acute and ongoing global shortage of healthcare workers. That is going on to this day. That is going on right now. This is a global phenomenon affecting us in the United States. As you all know, Kaiser Permanente, 75,000 workers went on strike last week. For the record, the only reason that strike ended was by federal law. They are planning another action next month. In my own hospital, Montefiore in the Bronx, the nurses went on strike in January, won all of their demands. And in the past month, the pharmacists at Walgreens and CVS both walked off the job in separate actions. So we very much are experiencing the shortage of healthcare workers in the US. And we are doing so having received 22% of our practicing doctors from other countries. We're sort of in the middle. Other countries are receiving more, a few countries are receiving less, but as you see here, between 1 in 6 and 1 in 5 of practicing doctors in the developing world was trained in a foreign country. We are in a bidding war for healthcare talent against the developing world. The developing world is losing. This is causing a brain drain out of the developing world, where after 40 years of their debt burden, 40 years of defunding their health systems, people are migrating en masse. And if you have an MD degree, you are welcomed in many countries, including our own, as on a knowledge visa because you have special skills. So it's a selective permission for the most talented and the most trained to leave their home countries. So now, in the 2000s, the global health landscape is different than when it began. There are less doctors available in the developing world. Their health systems have been chronically defunded for 40 years. Their populations are growing and their disease burden is increasing because now not only do they have high burdens of HIV/AIDS, 75% of the world's HIV burden is in sub-Saharan Africa. They also have tuberculosis. They're now also at the same time having obesity, diabetes, hypertension, cardiovascular disease, chronic diseases that require lifelong medical care. They've got both ends of the epidemiology stick. So, what do? Well, let me bring you to the hospital where I work in Africa. This is Kisoro, Uganda. And as you see, it's a lush mountainous area. Those are 3 extinct volcanoes. And that's our hospital in the center of the picture. It's a cluster of about 10 buildings located on the side of a road. Inside that hospital, after 40 years of chronic defunding, it looks like this. There are no sheets on any of the beds. This is an open ward system. There's a single light bulb hanging in the center of the room. When patients come, they have to bring their own bedding, and the nurses only provide injections and tablets and maybe change a wound dressing if it's a good day and there are supplies. Families provide 100% of the care to the patient. A family coming to care for an admitted patient brings their own firewood to cook in the cookhouse to provide meals for their family member. The children come with, they can't be left alone in the village. Again, a family with the firewood, the child, a couple bags of supplies, potatoes, bedding. They're planning to camp and live at the hospital for a week or 2 weeks, the duration of the admission. This mother peeling potatoes for her son, brought her child along. It disrupts the entire family unit when a hospital admission occurs. Here, the women, they form a community. They cook together, they talk together. They care for their family as they would at home. Women continue to do the washing, both of the clothes and of their children. And the women put the laundry out on the hospital lawn to dry. So the hospital is providing the most skeletal amount of services. The beds look like this. They are not clean. You would not want to stay on them. The hospital wheelchair, the hospital toilets. Now, next I've got a short video I'll show of the condition in the hospital toilets. So that wouldn't be allowed in a US prison. And that is a day when the water was running. And there are many days when the water is not running, and the toilets take on a different look when there's no running water for 3 or 4 days. Also, the power goes out 1 or 2 times a day. Our electric equipment, our oxygen concentrators stop periodically through the day. And I look around the wards and I see patients who are no longer getting oxygen, and I don't know how long the power will be out. So what can be done? I want to be honest with you. I don't think the debt burdens of the third world are going to be resolved. And I don't think these chronically bankrupt health systems are going to soon emerge into a brighter day of funding. And I don't think the brain drain of doctors out of Africa or the rest of the developing world is going to stop anytime soon. In fact, all data from the past 15 years shows that it's increasing. So what can be done? Well, when you've got problems this big, you have to think out of the box. And where the thinking is now in global health is of an entirely different kind of health system. Actually, a health system where doctors are not the centerpiece and not the linchpin for delivering care. There's a new model that's been emerging since the 70s based on village health workers. Village health workers are people without formal training in nursing or medicine, and they don't work in clinics or hospitals. They are regular citizens elected by their village to go receive extra training in healthcare, the way you might take a CPR course or take first aid training or lifeguard training. They're elected to go serve as a position of honor, and the care they render to their village is done without any fee. They don't have an office. They live in the same house they've always lived in, and they walk around their village and they check on people, and people can come to them when they have a health concern or a problem. This is like putting a school nurse in every village. And what it does is it establishes a liaison person for healthcare in every village. A liaison person who can say, you don't need to go to the hospital for that problem, and you do. And they can help people make intelligent, rational decisions based on the need they face. I want to introduce you to a village healthcare worker. In the program I work with, we have 48 village healthcare workers working in 48 villages. The average population in the village is 1,000 people, so we're able to provide some level of care for 48,000 people through this system. Mary, as you can see, is a woman, and in the developing world, women are typically excluded from employment and the cash economy because they have children and they are not able to leave. Men leave. Men leave and go for jobs picking crops. They go to construction sites. They might go to the capital city and look for work. Women with 4 or 5 children in the house are going nowhere outside of a 4-kilometer radius of the market and church. And it's a generalization and a simplification. There's a lot of truth to it. Women like Mary are excluded from the cash economy because they farm their little plot of land and they have enough food, but they can't earn any money. This puts a downward pressure on them because they can't afford data for their cellular phones, their little flip-top cellular phones. So they're getting screened out of the digital economy. And they also have a hard time paying their children's school fees. So children have to drop out of school at a young age. Getting Mary a job as a village health worker means that she has not quite a work at home job, but a work in the village job where she doesn't have to leave. Mary gets a dependable, steady salary of cash money, enough to pay these key expenses that are the linchpins to progress for herself and her children. And Mary, as a VHW, does not possess an MD diploma that would be a ticket for leaving the country. This is a way to build a steadfast, local, accessible healthcare core. Working with her is Alois. Alois has the level of training of a clinical officer, what we would call a physician's assistant. He's very capable medically, but he doesn't have that diploma that can be like a jetpack for getting out of the country. So he will also remain in his community. Alois and Mary work together as a pair, with Alois checking up every 2 weeks on Mary's work in the field, reviewing the cases she's seen, the decisions she's made. Mary carries a doctor's bag. It includes a few antibiotics. It includes wound treatment, iodine, malnutrition bars, malaria treatment, and a morning after pill. She has that, and every 2 weeks, Alois checks up on her and asks for a report on what she's used. I have 2 short videos. I'd like to have Mary and Alois meet you. Oh, I'm one too far. Try this again. As a veteran of theater, I'm a veteran of many technical problems, so I am not afraid. We are going to get this. Okay. All right. Okay, you want to back it up once more and I'll try? Okay. Great. If you just hit, yeah. This is Alois arriving at Mary's house.
iyo numvise ndi heresi waka nkuba mu village abona abantu barankunze mu village mu by'ubuzima ndi kubakorerana cyane kubahereza amadagara numvaga nishimye cyane uvuga ngo Imana igumishe kundeka mu bya village heresi waka kumva nishimiye umurimo kandi n'abaturage banje baranyishimiye cyane kugira ngo nkomeze kubakorera.
What Mary's carrying in her hands there are all the reports she's going to go over with Alois.
Salikubaza ngo kuri supervision wirebye ute kuri wewe supervision wirebye ute?
Nyirebye ni nziza uyu munsi uko murebye ibyo nashize ku stipend ukuntu ko ngenda mu magondi kubafasha ndi kubahereza amadagara mbonye ari byiza kugira namwe cyo kumenya ko ndi gukora mishizeho umwete.
It has been very good, as in we found when you as taking care of these people very much.
Pero aquí también se palpa.
And had one hospital discharge, was discharged from hospital, so she had to follow up that patient. She also identified the 2 chronic illnesses who were both asthmatic patients. She had one mentally ill patient identified. She also had the 3 new pregnancies that she identified in her village. She identified the 5 people or pregnant women who attended antenatal. There are 5, so she had to refer them for antenatal, 5 of them. I'm seeing she didn't have a woman referred for cervical cancer screening, but had the one referred for family planning, and identified the 4 homes with the risk factors from her family sheet binder. Yeah. So those are the items she had. In addition to the home talks that she gave 4 home talks to different homes and different home talks. One was on diarrhea, another on cervical cancer, another on malaria, the other one was on hypertension. Yeah. Yeah, for follow-ups, she had the 8 follow-ups she had. Some of them are asthmatic patients, heart failure, and hypertensive who are not controlled at CDCOM that she tries to follow up to see how they are taking meds and how their measures are doing. Yeah, so those are the activities she had to do in the last 2 weeks.
That's 2 weeks of work done in the field. Not a single patient had to leave their home and go to a health clinic or a hospital. No families were inconvenienced. And Mary did all of that by walking around. Her documents are checked. There are written records of everything. So Mary is a wrecking ball out in the field of taking care of people. And women like her represent a great untapped resource in Africa. If you've ever been involved in hiring for your organization, you know that unemployment is actually your friend if you're sitting on that side of the hiring table, that you can get the best people and they'll stick with the job. That's this position we're in hiring village health workers. This is a sought after position that carries honor and prestige, and again, gets these women into the cash economy, which is transformational for their lives, the lives of their family and children. This gets them into the middle class. The village health worker idea has been gaining traction. In 2011, the Lancet published a bold proposal to try and train 1 million village health workers in Africa by 2015. By 2018, the UN and the WHO said, we want 2 million village health workers. This was once considered a fringe volunteer position without the prestige of a doctor. Organizations are saying, bring them, bring them, bring them. Open the floodgates, we want them. So our own White House has said in our documents about our aid to Africa, the majority of these workers will be women because they're available and because they don't have the competitive interest of going to the capital city, for going to pick crops, for being absent, coming and going over months. So this is building a dependable, available cadre of healthcare people on site in the village. The World Health Organization says 70% of these women, 70% of the future healthcare workforce will be women. They have the experience with childbirth and childhood illnesses and pregnancy, so they are the right people to peer-to-peer provide healthcare to the other people in their village. So this is where we're going in global health. This is the global health landscape in 2023. And if we reflect back to the global health landscape in 1948, no one was thinking here that 4 to 5 million women were going to be the solution to global health. But now, 75 years later, that is exactly where we stand. And the challenge in delivering global health aid now is not about loading troop ships with penicillin vaccines, though we still need vaccines and penicillin. It's about training. It's about training a workforce that's stable. Training requires knowledge transfer, and training requires supervision. Our program wrote these 2 books. This is a 1,500-page training text in global health that I edited, and we're working to train and scale out the Village Health Worker Program. I began with a quote from the UN as the beginning of the global health era, and I'll close with the quote from the UN now. Few, if any, of our global health development tools match the potential of community health workers to drive gains on multiple fronts. A substantial body of evidence demonstrates that community health workers increase the uptake of health services, reduce health inequalities, provide high quality of services, and improve overall health outcomes. This is the direction global health is going in the near future, and I think this is a great direction to support for the benefit of women and all people in the developing world. Thank you. I think we're waiting for a microphone, and we'll take both your questions.
So my question is, my question is, where does the training come from? Where do these people go to be trained?
Yeah, so they tend to go to the local health center or hospital. That's the physical site of the training, but that's just an address and a building. The real question is who's doing the training, who's coordinating it, who's checking the level of training. And that takes outside organizations. That's part of what my group does. We've planned and coordinated a whole curriculum for village healthcare workers. We do the hiring, we promote them, and we do the supervision, as you see. That is not in the knowledge base or the functional capability, generally speaking, of healthcare systems in the developing world. This is something that's brought in from the outside, but it leaves the talent and it leaves the workforce there. So this is aid. This is an external form of aid, but it's leaving something behind that grows, and that workforce grows in experience and knowledge each year that they continue. And we have people continuing 10 to 15 years in these positions.
Yeah, let me just ask a follow-up question. So my question really went to who does the training? Are these doctors that come in from out of the country?
Yeah.
Are they, people with your organization?
Yeah.
Who does the training?
So it could be anyone who does it. It should either be a doctor or like a very senior physician assistant, senior clinical officer, or a very experienced global health village health worker. This could be done a bit peer-to-peer. There's nothing about the MD diploma that makes that person the only person who can train, okay? Your Red Cross instructors are not doctors in most cases, they're just trained. So to transfer this knowledge and supervision, we need to sort of select the trainers. I believe the appropriate people are around in these communities, but to hire them and say, hey, we've got an additional job for you, train up to do this, and let's make a 3-year commitment. And people will do it if you offer them a job. So this is a new kind of impetus, a new action in the global health domain.
I was going to ask, have you heard of Rotary?
That's why I'm here.
Yeah, you could very well be a Rotarian. We have members who bring their own projects to clubs, and this is the kind of work that it is within what we call our areas of focus, which is health and disease prevention. So I have to thank you for being here. We can talk.
All right, great. Thank you very much. And I'm glad to be here, and thank you for having me.
Any other questions? How you found this? Well, they can't hear you on Zoom.
Thank you. I'm Chuck Groby. Just wanted to ask real quick. Thank you, by the way. My sons are both Eagle Scouts, and a great accomplishment. But I wanted to ask you, how did you find this locale?
My program director found this location. We were in a different place in Uganda, and we got gentrified out. We got muscled out by a well-funded British medical school around 2003, and we literally got bumped on down the road to the cheap seats and set up shop in a new area. And thankfully, no one's come to bump us out of this one yet. That's the truth. It's been a 20-year partnership with a single hospital.
What is the best way for people to support you right now? Or I guess, what is it you need right now as an organization or for what you're doing?
Oh, thank you very much, Andrew. At this moment, the straight honest answer is financial help would help, because we have the village health workers hired, but we are an academic group of global health physicians, and our funding is kind of always on the chopping block. And we work both in the hospital caring for admitted patients and also out in the field in the community. And the threat is always to have to pull away from the community, but that's the worst, because that's the primary care, that's the greatest accomplishment. It keeps people out of the hospital. We would need help to keep our village health workers funded and to keep the training growing, and hopefully to launch a pilot program in another neighboring community that we could use our 15-year experience doing this to share with them, so that someone else doesn't start from scratch.
Are there any questions on the Zoom?
There are, just a second. So this question is from Adriana, and she says, this seems to be happening not only in sub-Saharan African countries, but also in several Latin American countries, such as in Venezuela and Haiti. Families have to bring everything from Band-Aids to medications, as well as food and any bed sheets. Power outages also are a cause of death during surgery, birth, and intensive care. How do you consider a possibility of the model you're considering in Uganda and the various dysfunctional regimes we currently deal with in some Latin American countries as well?
Sure. Yeah, what I described in Uganda is unfortunately widespread. again, there are some things I'm not optimistic that we can change, that will change in the near future. But I think the nature of care, of keeping people out of the hospital, of caring for them at home, that's one success. The other is, which is showing up to aid the people who are admitted in the hospital and caring for them, because the staff shortages are terrible and they're almost unrecorded. People who arrive to the hospital and go 3 or 4 days without being seen. I mean, and there's no statistic to measure the mortality that causes. But if we can train up, if we can create health literacy in the communities, we will have healthier communities. And if we can help these families get a toehold in a middle class status where generationally their children will complete school, there can be an improvement of a society's status over time, regardless of who stays in power. So this is the long haul of the development end of things. And I'm kind of cynical about one-off $1 million grants. You know, they're kind of herky-jerky. So it's a long haul. That's why education's a good investment, be it in health workers or in children. Okay, I've run over time. Alita, it's your call. Do we have time for another question or should wrap it up?
There is one more question on Zoom. Okay. This is from Susan. Is there any support available from the major medical institutions in the country and in surrounding areas? Would advanced care nursing staff be able to contribute to your efforts also, or perhaps medical students may be closer to these communities on a regular basis?
We have, one thing is, we can take, and the whole developing world can take visits, hopefully longer term, more than a week visits from visiting health professionals. You can really contribute. And if you take a suitcase or two of bandages and gloves and alcohol wipes and tape, you're setting them up for a month of necessary supplies. So impact is doable. We bring medical students and residents to us for a 1-month training rotation. They do a lot of good. They make a lot of good. It's difficult to set up a long-term boots on the ground global health program in another location. Some of these locations are unstable. Medical schools don't like the risk of it. It's fine for spring break, but if you want to say, I want people on the ground 9 months out of the year, you're going to get some blowback. If anyone who wants to participate in aid can find a way to do so, I would just advocate against, again, this sort of spring break mentality of going for a week, being an observer, taking a bunch of pictures and leaving. Go for a month, go for 2 weeks minimum, and bring 2 suitcases. One's going to be empty by the time you head back. But come, participate, okay? It's never been easier to travel, to arrange things via the internet. There are not barriers to entering these countries. So please come and get involved if it's your interest. My email address was up on the screen at one point. Maybe we'll put that up once more, Eric, if you could. And I'm 100% contactable. I've got cards in my pocket, and I would love to speak further with anyone with an interest in supporting global health. Thank you very much. Okay.
There's his email address. And we can send that out to everybody also. Can I go forward? Well, we have a one, right. All right. So thank you so much. This is a wonderful coffee cup that you could take with you.
Thank you.
Remind you of your time here. And there's also some cookies in that cup from who I'm supporting this year, Al's Cookie Mix. Al started a cookie company to support his son and his friends that have autism when they age out of the system in Chicago. And if you use that QR code, you get 10% off your first order. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Alita.
Right.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. Okay, so right now we have Debbie Ross, who is going to speak with us.
Hello,
Debbie?
Lita. I'm
Hi,
here.
Debbie.
How are
And
you?
I'm great, thank you. And Debbie's going to talk to us about the Rose Parade.
Thanks, Alita, and thank you everyone for inviting me to share a few moments of the time that you have as you gather this week. As Alita said, my name is Debbie Ross. I'm a past district governor for Rotary District 6450, but I also happen to be an ambassador for Rotary and the Rose Parade. So it's for that reason that I'm here to visit you today. So Eric, thank you. Since 1980, Rotary has participated in the Rose Parade, and in 2023, 45.5 million people around the world saw our Rotary president and partner as they paraded down Colorado Boulevard, heralding the message of Rotary. In 2023, I had the privilege of decorating the float and becoming an ambassador for Rotary and the Rose Parade. I'm here to ask your club help our district be a sponsor of this year's float and provide our district governor, one of your very own members, Connor G., an opportunity to walk along with the float for the 5.5-mile journey that it will take. Funds to design, create, and execute the float come from Rotarians in California, in the United States, and around the world. District 6450 has committed to be a sponsor this year, and as a reward for that sponsorship, we'll place one of our own on Colorado Boulevard and walk along with the float on New Year's Day. This year's float, which you're looking at there, celebrates Rotary's commitment to clean water, and the theme of this year's Rose Parade, the music of life. Your donation will ensure that come January 1, 2024, millions of viewers and parade enthusiasts will again hear Rotary's message. So I'm going to ask that you please consider partnering along with other clubs in our district to support the Rose Parade Committee and send District Governor Connor G. to Pasadena this New Year's Day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Debbie, for that presentation.
Thanks, Alita.
And so today, our wonderful piggy banks in the middle of the tables, whatever people donate into the piggy banks will go to help Connor G to go to the Rose Parade this year, one of our own very members. So please give cash, checks, whatever. All right. And then with that, do we have any visitors in the room? And we do.
Hi. Yeah.
It's fine.
Okay. My name is Nicole Mikio. I'm from Brazil, and I recently graduated from UCLA. I just moved to Chicago, and I'm with the Rotaract Club. Thank you.
And then we have a guest of a member.
Sounds about right now. All right. My name is Michael Stablin. I'm a friend of Marga's and Laura's. They invited me to Lou Malnati's last Tuesday. I was interested in Rotary Club for a long time. I heard about it back in high school when I did some service and humanitarian projects. I did some more of those projects while I was in college, and now that I'm wrapping up my PhD, starting my career here in Chicago, I was looking for opportunities to keep that as part of my repertoire of activities. Rotary stood out to me. I reached out. The organization reached out back to me, and I'm happy to join you guys here on this Tuesday afternoon. Hopefully more events in the future.
All right, great. Thank you. And do we have any visiting Rotarians on the Zoom?
It does not look like it.
Okay. All right. And next, announcements. Yay. Okay. We have upcoming opportunities to join us and our upcoming speakers. So please go to the gyrator or online to register. And all of our members, when you register for a meeting, please log into your DACDB account and register as a member, not as a guest. Please, that would really help us with tracking and everything else that we need to do.
If you have a question, call the office.
Call the office or call Andrew. So every Wednesday we have a volunteer opportunity at Cornerstone on 1111 North Wells from 2 to 5 or 5 to 7:30. Please register online. We feed approximately 175 meals every single Wednesday, so I always need help with that. And we have 2 storage containers walking distance from the ULC. And next week at 3 o'clock after the meeting, we're looking for volunteers to help me go over there and go through our storage container, except for Laura, because Laura believes in just pitching everything. Everything goes. No, but okay, I got you, Ryan. You got you. And so it's at 615 South Wabash. We're gonna walk over there from here, kind of go through everything in the archives and see what we want to keep for the club, what we might want to let other people have, what may go. All right, already has some of our things we have, but we're just gonna go through that storage container and see what we have and see what we can do. And I believe we might have an auction off of some of those things for other Rotarians who may wish to have those things in their personal archives. And we have our Rotary One member survey, and the deadline is October 13th. Please, all members, take that survey so we know how you feel about the club and what direction you would like for us to go in with that. And that's your way of letting us know how we're doing and what we can improve upon. And then we have Come Home Zone, October 18th through the 22nd. It's going to be in Evanston and around Chicago. They are looking for greeters, ambassadors, docents at the Paul Harris home, all of those things. So if you would like to come out and volunteer and meet some other Rotarians from around the country, because however our zone, how we're in this zone, and we also have Texas, I'm not really sure how that works out, but so there'll be lots of Rotarians visiting from around the country. October 21st, we have a tour of the Haitian American Museum. So please register online. Our DEI committee put that together for us to have a really good time and see something, a nice hidden gem in the city of Chicago. And World Polio Day, October 24th. As we all know, polio is one of our biggest initiatives. So on October 4th, Ina Pinckney is going to be here to speak. She is the chair of the Global Post-Polio Syndrome Advocacy Group and works with Rotary. And then, we're running late, and she will be here to speak. And then that evening, we have an event at Berghoff Restaurant from 5 to 8, where we can help raise money for polio. You can sign up there or just come and have fun with us. And then that Saturday, the 28th, right? 28th, we will be at the Apple store, right outside the Apple store, handing out information about polio from 10 to 12 o'clock. Please wear your wonderful End Polio Now t-shirts, or you can also reach out to Margaret. I think we have a link to buy them. What we're going to do is gather at the plaza by the Apple store and then walk around the bridge and North Michigan Avenue in that area to talk to people about Rotary. So we're also going to have buttons that say, ask me about Rotary. So I hope I see you there because we haven't done anything like this in a long while. So it's going to be fun from 10 to 12. And then whoever is there, if we want to have lunch or we're meeting together, we'll decide on the spot. Okay? So hope I see you there. Thank you, Marga. We have our community service scholarship for college applications. They are due November 30th. Please reach out to any student or anyone you may know that works at a college in the city of Chicago proper, so that we have some students to apply for this scholarship. We're giving away 3 $1,000 scholarships to students. Also, remember to donate to the Rotary Foundation. That is how we do all the wonderful things that we do in this world and in this country and in Chicago through our DDF funds. So as much money as we give, we get that back, and we get a third of that back. I don't remember. We get it back in 3 years. So the more we get, the more we give, the more we get back. And so that's what we always need to remember. Download the Ignite app. That's a wonderful app on your phone, so you can register for meetings, you can take service selfies when you're out, and all those other wonderful things. And that's the gyrator QR code. And all of our wonderful committee meetings are all in the gyrator. And please reach out if you would like to be a part of any of our committees. They are all looking for new members to come along. And that's our meetings, meeting attendance. Please make sure everyone RSVPs. And if you plans change and you can't come, please let us know so that we can make adjustments so we don't have food that goes to waste, because that's not very fair to all concerned for us to have food that goes to waste. See? And with that, if everyone would stand so we can do the 4-way test. The 4-way test of the things we think, say, or do. Number 1. Number 2. Number 3, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And number 4, will it be beneficial to all concerned? And like we say, number 5, will it be fun? All right, and with that, I adjourn this meeting.